Hey, I'm Tom.
And I'm John.
And we're the co-founders of Handsome Frank Illustration Agency.
In this series, we'll be sitting down and talking to our illustrators, finding out more about them, their artistic process, and the creative industry we work in.
Welcome to our podcast.
Morning, Tom.
Good morning, John.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Very good.
So we're recording this introduction in September, having met with Paul Thurlby back in July.
Yeah.
How time flies.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was a really nice day. We got the train down to Brighton. It was kind of I guess felt like our first kind of big outing after lockdown, and really nice to get out and meet with Paul and sit and have a chat. And we had a really nice time in Brighton, and then went on and had lunch with Tim McDonough, another one of our illustrators.
Yeah, and Amy.
And then sat in a pub for a couple of hours whilst the sun set. So it was a great day, but it was really good to catch up with Paul, and we touched on a lot of subjects, covered quite a lot in our kind of rambling conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is we'd kind of discussed a few times whether we should record podcasts remotely in lockdown or whether we wouldn't. And I think we both kind of decided it was better just to wait, and it's so much nicer to do it in person. And that was definitely the right decision to make.
Yeah, so in this conversation, we talk a lot with Paul about his move to Brighton from London. We touch on subjects such as fatherhood and how having a son has changed his kind of work and life balance. And yeah, talk about there's a lot of conversations about projects we've worked on together that were really nice to look back on and talk about kind of specific case studies.
The other thing that really stood out to me was the kind of confidence that Paul has gained throughout his career. I think that's obviously a kind of maturity. You know, he's been doing this a long time now, but yeah, that's a really interesting kind of angle that you get from his discussions.
Okay, so without further ado, this is us talking to Paul Thurlby.
Enjoy.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us in your beautiful house.
Yeah, here we are in sunny Brighton. We're sat at a table right in front of the window. I can see the sea right in front of us. There's a couple of people on paddleboards and swimming. The water is incredibly flat, and I very much intend to go and have a swim later. So yeah, this is lovely. How long have you lived here?
Since 2017.
Yeah, lovely spot, and full of art and full of some other Handsome Frank art as well, which is always nice to see.
That's correct, yeah. A bit of Malika on there.
Yeah, beautiful. So I was going to ask you about kind of the move here, really. You were living in London previously?
Yes, I lived in London from 2009 until 2017.
Okay.
So yes, 8 years.
And what was the catalyst to kind of up sticks and head to the coast?
Leo, really, because I thought
Your son.
with the costs in London for renting or buying, we'd have to move from to the outskirts to get a decent sized place, and also because there was quite a bit of trouble in London at the time with various things, and I thought it wasn't really a safe environment to bring up a child. And also we had a friend down here who had a little girl, so just thought it'd be a good time to move, and
So all round kind of life-changing things happening at once.
Yeah, I mean, some people said that it's where you go when you retire, and I said no, it's not. It's different. It's Brighton.
It's a very youthful city.
Yeah, I think lots of people are moving to Brighton now from London and various places. So
yeah,
it's becoming really popular, and there's lots of young people here, lots of things going on. So,
and do you feel it's affected your work? Has it changed your work? Does your environment affect what you draw, or is it not like that for you?
I think in London, everything felt like quite a bit of a struggle. The rents were higher, so you had to feel like you were working harder. Travelling was harder because you had to struggle on the underground or on, overground. Here everything is more relaxed and people are a bit more friendly. So, but I think generally, I don't think it's changed my work or my productivity. So it was always the same. But I think always I'm trying to work harder and get better at my work, and that's not changed by moving. It's just the same. I would say that having Leo changes things because
fatherhood.
I'm more responsible. I have to provide things for him as well. So save money, maybe buy somewhere sometime. So yeah, so that's a definite motivator as well.
So becoming a dad and having another mouth to feed, I guess brings practical changes to your life. How has it changed the way you work, the sort of times that you work? Has that had an effect?
It's very difficult because I work from home and Leo lives here, so
we can see some of Leo's art, by the way.
Yes,
behind us.
That's available to buy, and it's very difficult sometimes having him around and trying to work at the same time. And obviously Ellie is here, but I don't want to put everything on her. It's not fair. I have to just kind of work around it. When I'm busy, Ellie understands that she has to look after Leo more. And I've always worked in the evening quite a lot as well. So when Leo goes to bed, I'll work, So
there wasn't much of a change in lockdown for you?
No, I always worked from home, so there was no change at all. So in that way, I've been really lucky.
Yeah, I think the whole illustration industry in general is just been. We've been doing this for a long time.
I know, and I thought when the pandemic started, I think you emailed to say that you may have to accept lower commission fees, etc. Things might be tough, but really, it's been. Especially since the new year, it's been the best period ever. I've been the busiest ever.
Yeah, we've been. I mean, no, it was the unexpected, wasn't it? So
yeah.
we really had no idea what to expect, and I think myself and Tom wrote an email to all the artists, just giving our general thoughts on what might come. But we were really pleasantly surprised by how the industry kind of reacted.
It's really the unknown, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen. It was like in the recession. Back in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure what was going to happen then. In a better position now to face a pandemic than I was at that time. But I'm really pleasantly surprised, and I feel very lucky that I'm in this profession when other professions have suffered quite a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we kind of echo that. I mean, you mentioned 2009. That's when we started, and I was. Yeah. We started in a recession, so I always kind of have that comfort to think, well, we managed to do it then. But yeah, times change.
Yeah.
So just quickly going back to your son Leo, what does he think of you being an artist? Is he impressed?
Leo is more interested in numbers. He is obsessed with numbers.
Oh.
So he's not really interested in art at the moment. I mean, he loves books.
Yeah.
He loves books. But he's very interested in numbers, and he can count quite a lot. And he loves house numbers. So walking down the street will take quite a while because he loves that, and he loves closing gates. But he's not so much into art at the moment. Me and Ellie, obviously Ellie's an illustrator as well, so we'd love him to be creative in that sense.
Yeah.
But he's not at the moment. I don't know whether that's going to come.
Yeah, maybe in time.
But he started to scribble.
But he's surrounded by art and colour and art books and prints here. So surely you'd expect some of it to kind of permeate through at some point.
Maybe he'll kind of react in the opposite way, as sometimes happens, But we, encourage him with his numbers. He's got an incredibly good memory, especially with world flags. He knows more than I do, certainly. So he's got a very good memory, visual memory. And he can see things which we can't see straight away. He'll pick out a number, a very small number, and you'll see that from a distance.
Do you show him your books?
I have done, yeah. I mean, he's over alphabet now. I mean, he was really interested in that, and he'd go through that, which was really lovely.
Yeah.
Because at the time when I created alphabet, which was in the recession, because I had not much work at the time, so I just wanted to keep myself busy. And at the time, I thought, okay, you've got to do an alphabet. It's going to be for children, but I soon kind of forgot about that and just did it for my own enjoyment. And so to see kids being into that is really lovely.
Yeah.
And I always think with your work, of all the artists we work with, I probably see your art out in the world commercially more than anyone's. Gift stores, the books,
yes,
postcards, greetings cards. A friend of mine, I went to their house a few weeks back and they had your fridge magnets. So he must see it out and about. He must be aware that Daddy's work is in the shops.
Yeah, we have the fridge magnets. We have them in the kitchen, and he's still very much into that. So we keep spelling out words that don't make sense at all and that kind of thing. So it's very lovely, and it's a bit strange when I go to friends' houses and they've got my work, and I kind of feel a bit embarrassed that they've got so much of my work. And maybe they put it away when I go. I don't know.
Well, I've got some of your work in my house, and it's there all the time. You've never been to my house.
Oh,
so.
right.
Well, I just remember.
Yeah, you have the you have that.
So a couple of years ago at Christmas, my mother-in-law brought me some of your coasters, but she had no idea that we worked together. So I unwrapped this present and was like, oh, well, there'll be coasters. And yeah, it was a surprise gift.
What do you put that broad appeal down to with your work? Because I think it does cross over into kind of mass market potential, and I was wondering if you have any ideas about why that is.
I don't know. I mean, when I was starting out, when I was showing my portfolio around, I often got rejected because my work wasn't what they were looking for, etc. For example, for The Guardian, it wasn't really what they were looking for. And I was always able to kind of change my work so that it would be more commissionable, but at the same time, something that I liked as well. So I'm not just going to change my work to be more commissionable just for the sake of it, but I have to like it as well, because it's a very important part of it, because I'm showing my work around and I have to believe in it. And even when I look back in the beginning, I'm looking at my work from ages ago and I'm thinking that was really a load of rubbish. At the time, I believed in it, and that was the important thing.
Yeah. I remember very clearly the first time I saw your work and became aware of you, and I was furious. Because
furious? Why? You hated it?
Myself and Tom had started the agency, and we'd been going, I think, for a year or so. And I got on the tube one morning, and there was this incredible illustrated campaign for, I think it was France.
French Tourist Board.
French Tourist Board.
2012.
Yeah. And I saw that, and I was so annoyed that we hadn't done it, and that we didn't work with you. And I took a photo of it and found out who was behind it pretty quickly. And I think that's when we started talking. But
yes, that's right.
It just, because it was so bold and so different and so, I don't know, it just felt like a really interesting use of illustration in an advertising campaign. Tell us about that job. How did that come about? That was before we worked together.
Oh yeah, basically they wanted I got contacted by an agency, and they wanted. The idea was that the posters were going to be reminiscent of the Jack Tatty posters, and so I think it was 6 posters for the first campaign in 2 weeks, which was quite a lot.
Wow.
And I was really excited about doing that. I loved French posters as well, and they knew that. I loved French posters from the last century. So there I was doing that, and I worked on that intensely for 2 weeks. And you know, when you work so intensely on something, you lose kind of perspective on it. By the end of it, I really hated it. And I remember a few weeks later, I went to my local tube station, Highbury in Islington, and I was standing on the platform, probably looking at my feet. And then I looked up, and then there was these 3 posters in front of me. I thought, oh my God. And I thought, I'm so embarrassed. But then I realised nobody else knows it's by me. And, you know, but I think when a bit later you have a different view of it. You think, oh, actually, I quite like these. you know. But it's at the time when you've been so intensely working on something, you kind of just want it out of the way, you know.
Yeah, you see it in a different light.
Yeah.
You can't appreciate it quite as much as you should be able to.
Yeah, yeah.
But surely it's a lovely feeling to be able to see your work.
See your work like
that
that. I mean, it was the same with John Lewis.
That was
I absolutely
amazing.
hated it at that time when I'd finished it, and they invited me in for this launch event. I'm thinking, no, I don't want to.
Oh, really?
I thought I don't want to see it all, and it wasn't until later that I appreciated it.
But to give some context on that, so I went to photograph it. They kind of gave me a photographer's approval to go to the store. Obviously, I knew you'd created all the artwork, and I don't think we knew to the full extent what the visual merchandise team were going to do with it. But to go there, and every single window was full of your illustrations. All of your characters they'd made to life-sized cutouts. In the stairwell, there was 100 characters.
You can't get away
there.
from it.
There was an ice cream van. They had just gone to town, and it looked incredible. It was a really, really nice campaign.
It was a really incredible project to work on. I mean, they came up with the idea quite late, shall we say. They didn't give themselves much time to do it, but the idea was very ambitious, and they hadn't chosen an illustrator to do such a thing before for the windows. So it was very exciting. And there was a big team working on it, so it was quite difficult because you had everybody trying to chip in and have a word about it. And people who had a week off and came back and said, no, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was very hard work. And I hadn't worked on windows before, so I had to think about the depth as well, because it was kind of three-dimensional with different depths. So there was a lot to think about on that. And really, I'm thinking about how I'm going to set myself over 3 weeks to do all this. I'm thinking I need to finish this by that, and that by that time, and I just didn't have time to think about it, which was probably good, because then whatever you are doing is quite spontaneous. You don't think too much on something, you don't overdraw something. There's that kind of spontaneity about it. And it wasn't until the beginning when I saw the project in the windows, I wasn't happy, but then later on I thought, yeah, actually that's pretty good.
When you see your work that size, are you still kind of like, oh, I can see that brush mark that I don't really like?
Absolutely. And obviously there wasn't much time to think when you're doing that.
Yeah.
You've got to do lots of things, and then there was one whole window which I'd finished, and then they said, no, we don't want that, let's do another one off. And actually at that point I said, that's it, I'm not I said, that's it, I'm not doing it, because I'm just basically stuck to my chair without getting much exercise. Yeah. It was really bad for my health.
It was intense, wasn't it? Yeah.
So,
Just tell us about your process. Are you completely digital now in how you create your illustrations?
Well, actually I've got an iPad now that I've started doing some things on. I was very resistant to begin with, because I did a talk for Apple, and I thought, why do they want me to do this? I've never used an iPad. It's obvious that I draw things straight off with a pen and a brush pen. But they said they were going to give me a free iPad, so I thought, okay, I'll do it.
Nice.
And at first, I'm just using it for to watch movies on and things like that. And but now I've started to get into it, and I've started to realise that there are some brushes that that you can use them, and they're actually pretty good.
Is that Procreate?
Yeah.
It's got. I mean, the technology's got way better.
Yeah, but usually, still now I will obviously draw things out, and I'll use the brush pen quite a lot, and even certainly for lettering, hand lettering, I'll just sketch something out really quickly in pencil, use 2 lines, and then sketch out, and then I'll go over it in brush pen straight away. I won't do it in Procreate or anything like that. I still like that brush feel.
Tactile.
Yeah. A little bit of a rough edge that's not driven by a computer,
And you paint as well. There's some paintings in this. Is this one of yours?
No, that's not by me. None of these paintings are by me. That's by my wife, the one up there.
I thought you'd been doing some painting as well. I saw.
No.
Okay.
That's by Vilma. French poster artist.
Because you are kind of a collector, aren't you, of artworks? So and you kind of study French poster art.
Well,
Or you know it well.
I was. It probably comes from the alphabet because they're quite big, bold images. And somebody emailed me and said that your illustrations remind me of French poster artists. And then I started to look into those French poster artists, and I liked their work. And that's how it came about, really.
Okay, so
I didn't know
you weren't aware of them.
Yeah. I wasn't aware about them to begin with, so it happened by chance, really.
And because I think in the past I've seen sort of stuff on Instagram where you've been to Paris and you've been going through the racks and looking for.
Oh yes, yeah.
So it's a bit of a hobby as well. You kind of.
Yeah, I've started to get into auctions as well, which is quite dangerous, and the excitement of an online auction, and then you've got your finger on the button, and then have a limit, which is essential, but your heart starts beating in it like that. You're pressing it, and then
it's quite addictive.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about how you feel your work has changed over the years, and how that kind of journey from, I guess, when we first met and started working together to what you're doing now. I mean, I have some ideas about how it's changed. I think you've perhaps become more observational in your work, and certainly the John Lewis stuff was a lot more, felt like it was more of a comment on British life. I know that's what the brief asked for.
Yes, yeah.
Do you think you've moved from being an illustrator that purely looks at aesthetics to somebody who's looking for a bit more comment, or do you still like to play with both?
I think when I was a student, I always liked kind of comment. I used to be very much into satirical caricature. One of my heroes was Gerald Scarfe, who I interviewed for my dissertation. I used to love that, but I wasn't as good as I should be with that. And you need to be really, really good at coming up with those ideas regularly. Like someone like John Julien could do all the time. So I love drawing caricatures. I've always been into that kind of thing, characters, people. So it's just started to get back into trying to draw portraits as well, which I've always loved doing. But I think, my work has definitely changed. I mean, when you look back to Alphabet, there's a lot of texture on there over the top. And then I got to a certain stage when I was thinking that that kind of hides quite a lot of mistakes as well. So I wanted things to be a bit more clear without all the textures over the top that you can have. I mean, it's quite easy to age your work and make it look like that, and have things, hide your work behind that. But I just want things to be really clear now.
How about colour? How do you think that's evolved in your work?
I think around Alphabet time and before then, my colours were a bit more murky, shall we say. And I went through a certain stage when I thought I want to have brighter colours. So that's definitely changed, and that's definitely something I look at more now, I think.
So where do you look for sort of colour inspiration?
I don't know, sometimes, posters, certainly from the past, but my colours will develop on screen, so every illustration is different. And sometimes I'll take a colour, and then it will change when it gets on the screen. It'll change depending on what other colours are there. Yeah. So I won't go into an illustration and think, I'm going to use this colour and that colour and that colour. It's always changing depending on what the illustration is doing.
It always amazes me how much colour can completely transform an illustration.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how quickly colours, the trend of colour evolves in our industry. And for me, I think that comes from fashion, interior design, all sorts of different genres, and it kind of seeps into the illustration world.
Yeah, I was recently, for the first time, I was looking at what colours are kind of interior colours are in style in the summer, etc., that kind of thing. I might pick out one or two colours from that and use different colours with that. Yeah. So that's what I've changed recently, definitely.
Nice.
So it's interesting. A couple of the big projects we've talked about, John Lewis, French Tourist Board. Sounded like you didn't enjoy the process on those a bit.
Well,
I was going to ask if there are projects where you have really enjoyed it from start to finish, or is that the journey for you? You don't enjoy it whilst you're in the midst of it, and you come out the other end and then look back on it.
No, it depends. I think that you have to have some struggle to get something really good at the end of it. It can't be just really easy, otherwise it's not gonna. I've always thought that you have to really earn something in life, and so you have to struggle to get something good. And I think that's the case with a lot of briefs as well. When you look at John Lewis, I mean, they really pushed me, and at the time I was maybe quite not happy about that. But when you see the results, you see that they pushed you because they want to get the best results, and they don't just accept the first thing you come out with. So I always get wary when somebody commissions me and then they just accept the first illustration I've done without commenting on it. It's always somebody who pushes and says, maybe we could do this with it or do that. And sometimes when somebody makes a comment, I'll get quite angry and I'll think, no, how could they say that? But then I'll have a think about it and think, actually, maybe they're right about that, and maybe I could try this out and that out.
It's a real skill, isn't it? And I think when you work with a good art director, you really appreciate that. And I think the art directors that probably are at the top of their game are those that don't just take an existing piece of work and say, can you do something a bit like this?
Yeah.
They'll come to you and say, I love your work and I'm going to push you a bit out of your comfort zone. I want you to do something you've never done before. And that's when things get interesting.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And what kind of brief do you like to work to? Do you like quite a prescriptive brief? Do you like to be told exactly what to draw, or do you prefer a bit of creativity and freedom?
I do like problem solving and coming up with ideas. And so if somebody says it's quite an open brief and can you do something interesting with these, that's something that I'll be really into. And I do like prescriptive briefs as well. And I'm very much into illustrations that are more simplistic at the moment as well. Very bold illustrations. The commission for DoorDash recently, I really liked that one. Really big, bold illustrations that are going to be blown up into a big size.
Yeah, so to give some context, DoorDash, it's not very well known in the UK.
No.
But it's a food delivery company that is absolutely massive in America. So they came to us 6 months ago with a very large project that Paul and a few other Handsome Frank illustrators worked on.
But the work's been used. I mean, we keep getting sent these incredible photographs from California where you see your work on a huge billboard over a massive LA highway. I mean, that's pretty cool.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. You think about it when you're creating it on a little screen, and then it's blown up into a huge size. So you kind of have to think about what it's going to look like in that huge size. And I really enjoyed working with them, and it seemed quite straightforward. They knew what the kind of thing they wanted, and they trusted me to do it. So there weren't, most of the illustrations, there weren't many changes to them. Some of them were tiny details, but mostly it was fine, and they were happy with what I'd done, which was really nice when they see what you've done, worked on, and they're really happy with it.
And that was client direct,
yes,
as opposed to, so sometimes we work through an advertising or design agency, and increasingly work direct with clients. Do you notice any big changes between the two, or is it all much of a muchness, you find?
Well, sometimes if you're working through an agency, then you'll listen. There's the agency who are talking to you, and then there's the client who are talking to the agency. So it gets a bit more complicated sometimes. And sometimes, I think I was doing the illustrations for London Transport recently for Waterloo Station, and the end client. I think it took quite a while because there was somebody who hadn't had a say in it, and so there were late changes and that kind of thing. So it seemed like there were quite a lot of people who were having a say in it, and we thought that it was over the line, but it wasn't. And the agency were very good to work with, Leith, Very, very
Yeah,
fantastic
great
to work
Scottish
with. Yeah.
agency.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that project.
And they again, that was another very public, large format, kind
Yes.
of your work dominating one of London's biggest train stations.
I think it was because they had seen the John Lewis illustrations, and the public had reacted so well to those illustrations. So it's a very nice thing to have in a station rather than some blank boards, something that's going to give colour and a bit of humour maybe. It's always very nice.
So you've ticked a lot of boxes in terms of sort of dream projects. Is there still one out there that is the holy grail for you?
Yeah, I mean, recently, last year, I got one of the dream commissions, which was for Vespa. I'd been drawing several Vespas as a hint that I wanted a big commission from them. So that was a really nice thing, and very surprised that it happened during the first lockdown as well. So that was a nice surprise.
So that was through BBH London?
That's correct, yeah. And so that was one thing, but really, I'd like a big tennis commission.
Yes, well, you've been hinting at that in your
for years
personal work for a while. So if anyone out there is listening, Slazenger, Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Going back to Vespa, though, weren't you contacted by some Vespa fans and they wanted, was it printed posters or?
Yeah, and there was somebody who had a Vespa garage or something like that.
Museum.
So wanted me to do several things.
Yeah.
And yeah, the posters are going to be shown I think they've been shown in the Vespa Museum in Italy.
It's one of those brands that really inspires loyalty in its fans, I think.
Absolutely, and the beautiful thing about that was that they seemed to respect the illustrator as well, and they wanted the signature on the posters, which was really nice.
Because I know you've always put I remember doing work with you for The Guardian years ago, and you'd put the signature in and hope that no one asked you to take it out, and 9 times out of 10 you got away with it. I really like that quality. Was that something you'd recommend to young illustrators? Sign your work and see if
why
you
not? Good to do. Best to do it in the beginning, I think. I think I did the posters I did for the French Toys Board. They were supposed to be inspired by Jack Tatty posters from the mid-century. So I thought, okay, I'll put my signature in there. And the agency were really cool about that, but the French Toys Board said, we're not paying to advertise the illustrator.
No.
Yeah. I think something else you picked up on there, like you said that you wanted to work with Vespa, so you started illustrating Vespa. And that's just such a simple thing that a lot of illustrators kind of forget. That, if that's an industry or an area that you want to work in, and it's not in your portfolio, then you need to get it in there for a chance to work there.
And ultimately, it's about things you enjoy drawing, because that's what you're going to be commissioned for. So I enjoyed drawing Vespas. I enjoy drawing tennis. So it's all leading to good commissions, I hope. So, that's why personal work is so important, because it feeds into your commissions directly.
Yeah, I think if you put stuff out there in the universe, it will come back to you at some point.
It's like planting seeds. So it may not happen immediately, but it will happen in a few years. So you're planting seeds. And
that's a really nice way to think of it.
Yeah.
So I asked on Instagram and Twitter if anyone had any questions for you, and we've got a couple here. We've talked about dream clients. We've got a message from Miss Art Dorable saying, how do you find the right agency? Now, I guess that's on the presumption that you have.
No pressure.
Well, yeah, I have, I think. Before finding Handsome Frank, or they found me, I did try to find an agency, but I got rebuffed. I can't remember the agency, but I got a letter saying that it's not, my work wasn't really what they were looking for. So I thought, okay, I'm not bothered. I'll just do my own thing and work hard. And then after the French Toys Board posters, John got in touch with me, and first time I turned them down.
You did?
I did.
I'd forgotten that.
Oh, me too.
I asked an illustrator on Handsome Frank's books, who I knew, are they any good? Because I knew that he hadn't been going very many years.
Yeah.
So that was my concern. and they were quite pessimistic. I won't say who it was.
That's what I was going to ask.
I won't say who it was. So I thought, okay, no, I don't really need one at the moment. So that was it. And a year later, I started going out with Ellie, and I thought, oh, I've got to earn a bit more money. I've got to. I thought also, because I was doing children's books and I wanted to have more variety in my work at that stage, because I didn't want to get pigeonholed into just doing children's books. I wanted to do advertising, I wanted to do design, other things. I had noticed that Hans and Frank had taken on some very good illustrators. So I thought that would be a very good team to be associated with, and it would really lift my profile a lot. So I got in touch, hoping that you guys remembered me still, and you did, and you didn't feel too bad about me turning down the offer before. And so I was very happy about that, and I've never looked back really, because it's led to lots of varied commissions, and even I know the John Lewis commission wasn't through Hans and Frank, it was through my London book, but I passed it on to Hans and Frank because the whole legal side of it, the whole contract side of it was so huge. Doing that and the actual commission was way too much, and so it was absolutely fantastic to have you guys dealing with that side of things, and also acting as an intermediary if anything got difficult. I think Stu was fantastic with that, with dealing with John Lewis as well.
I've just remembered there were a few copyright related things we had to watch out for, and that was was it Royal Mail? There was the Queen. There's a lot of things being represented, which was a bit of a grey area for copyright.
Yeah, it's always quite difficult, and also that's the same case with children's books as well.
Yeah.
You have to watch out for various things, buildings, new buildings, famous people, etc. So it's always very difficult.
Yeah, and I think well, hopefully that's one of the benefits of an agent. All of that stuff is taken away and off your plate, and you can get on with what you want to be doing, which is creating the work.
Yes.
One of the things you touched on there, and I think again is interesting about you as an artist, is you have avoided being pigeonholed. You know, you're a children's book author, and you do children's books, but you managed to straddle that line and also work in advertising and branding and packaging design. Again, what do you put that down to? How have you managed it?
How have I managed it? I'd say that's a lot down to personal work as well, directing my personal work. Even before I started my children's book, Alphabet, which was just a personal project to begin with, I was doing a lot of editorial work when I first started out, and I realised that hardly paid the rent, and I was chasing commissions a lot of the time for the payment because I needed to pay my rent. I didn't have that much money at the time, so I thought I need more money. So I want to do some advertising work, and I was looking at advertising projects, and I was thinking I need my work to be more like that, more simplistic, bold, graphic, a bit humorous. So I changed my work then, and that's when things really turned around for me. And I think the best thing was when my peers, the illustrators that I looked up to, started to recognise my work. And
so what kinds of people are we talking about?
I think to begin with, I really enjoyed Jonathan Edwards' work, and he commented on my work at one point, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. You know, that was he was one of my favourite illustrators because I loved his characters, his people, and so when you get recognition like that from other illustrators who you admire, that's when you know you've turned the corner, you've started to be respected. That's a really fantastic feeling, you know.
And we've got another question off Twitter, this one, asking about animation. You've done a bit of animation. People ask you if you enjoy the experience.
Well, I haven't directly done animation. It was through Hans and Frank, the Wimbledon
working with
tennis bubbles.
Barone.
Yes, tennis bubbles. So I was a bit. I mean, I'm thinking, how can that be animated? But he's done such an incredible job, and made the illustration into something which I didn't think was possible, taking it to another level, if you like. And I'm a bit in awe of that. And actually, during lockdown, I was thinking I'm going to get into animation, but then something always comes up, and
It's really hard. It's such
Yeah.
a different skill set.
But I mean, his work is fantastic. And,
Enrique is a fantastic
yeah,
animator.
yeah. It's just incredible work, and but I loved seeing that tennis bubbles illustration animated. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
And if the opportunity arose to work with an animator and do something more developed and long, kind of like a bigger piece of animation, you'd be keen?
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
How do you feel? Well, how's your relationship with social media? How do you feel about your work being on Instagram, and how do you feel about having to play that game? Is this something you spend a lot of time on?
Well, firstly, I'm not really into Twitter. I don't really do much on Twitter. But Instagram is more image-based, and I really like that. I really like the feedback, and I think with illustration, it's not the nasty part of Instagram. I mean, I'm not a personality in my own right, just posting pictures of myself, so I'm not going to get bad comments about myself. It's just about my work, and it's mostly other illustrators or people who like art who will be commenting, so it's all usually quite nice comments. And it's interesting to see a response to your illustration, and it's not always with the algorithms. It's not always you post something and you think that's going to get a really good response, and then hardly any people see it.
Do the likes bother you? Do you look?
I think at some point it does, but then it's like with anything. I have friends who are honest with me about my work, and sometimes I'll not like their. Sometimes I'll agree with them and change something. Sometimes I'll be so confident in my work that I'll think I know that's good, and I don't need to ask for any comments or anything. I just know that it's good, and I'm confident in that, regardless of who sees it or how many likes it gets.
I think that's a really positive attitude to have, because ultimately, Instagram is not a barometer of
Absolutely
goodness.
not. No.
and the audience is not, qualified really to tell you if you're a good artist or not.
No.
In my opinion. I mean, kind of moving on from that, but thinking along the same vein, what advice would you offer aspiring, new artists, new illustrators, people graduating this year? What would be your kind of lookouts for them and your biggest words of advice?
I'd say that be ambitious and don't let anybody tell you that you can't be successful as an illustrator. I used to read a lot of stuff, even from other illustrators, about it being really difficult and you can't really make a good career from it. And even the Association of Illustrators at the time had a booklet that was How to Survive as an Illustrator. And I thought that was so negative, because I thought, I don't want to survive, I want to thrive and be successful. And I had quite a lot of debts when I started out, from university, from afterwards. The debts kept building up. But I always thought that with my work, and it was the only thing that I was really going to do. I had other jobs, admin jobs, but kind of illustration was the only thing that I knew that I could do really, really well. And I knew somewhere in my mind that I could make a success out of it and pay off my debts, and that was my driving force. I could do that, and I think if you visualize success, then it can happen. I used to visualize working for the Guardian in Guardian Sports section, and it finally happened. And I really do believe that if you're positive and you really work hard, because that's really important, you've got to work hard and not give up, then you can really make a success.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes an underrated quality of being an illustrator. You can have an incredible portfolio, but if it's not backed up with a good attitude and a good work ethic,
Yeah,
it's not going to carry you that far.
absolutely, and meet your deadlines as well. So I'm always quite. I was always quite punctual if I'm going to a job interview or something like that. I was always quite punctual, so I'm always very conscious of meeting a deadline. And I did work for the Guardian Sports section for a while, which was a really good learning curve, because at first sometimes you get about 2 hours to do it, because the writer would hand their copy in quite late, and so you only got a couple of hours, and that was the first time. And I drank quite a lot of coffee, which was not a good idea. So I was I was so excited about it. I was jumping out all over the place, and then, oh my God, 2 hours. But it really, when you've worked on that for quite a while, you can do your work really quickly, and deadlines are just no problem.
Yeah, it's good training.
Yeah.
There's a lot of writers out there, I think, don't realise the power they have over an illustrator.
Your deadline as an illustrator can't change. It was always about 5 o'clock, so it would just
that window shrinks.
Change,
But
yeah.
with a kind of finite time frame to work comes an element of creative freedom.
I think it's always good to have a deadline, but I would say that with my personal work, some ideas take quite a long time. So, for example, the tennis bubbles, that started as something quite different, and it just wasn't working. And I thought I want to have the tennis balls with roads, kind of the lines on the tennis ball as roads, but I didn't know how to structure it. And then I was looking at Mr. Men book with my son, and I saw these kind of hills which were round, and I thought, that's it. And that's when it clicked. But that was personal work. You can take a long time over something. At the same time, if you're working on a brief, it's sometimes good to have a deadline, because it really concentrates your mind on that, and you don't mess about. You kind of have to do something.
Yeah, I think there's a certain urgency with editorial work. And,
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it's part of the whole
apprenticeship of illustration.
Absolutely.
Really. Yeah, I'd say, yeah.
So what's next for you? What does the future hold? What are the next projects on the horizon?
I think I'm doing a book cover for Penguin. I've just been doing some prints for Sergeant Paper for Paris, and for Verbia as well. And I'm also working on a commission with Hanson Frank.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about that one.
No,
possibly not.
Everything's
let's not
under
talk
NDA.
about that. But otherwise, I just want to get a tennis commission, really, and to just to keep working hard and to push my work and do more personal work, really.
Yeah. It seems to have certainly put you on the right course.
Yeah. It's not so easy when you've got. I say the last year has been harder to do personal work because of the pandemic, and because I've been really busy with work and trying to wrestle with Leo.
Do you because I know some of the artists we work with, they will actually let me know in advance, but say, look, I'm going to take a month or 6 weeks out and just do some personal work. I'm not available to. They purposely put it in the diary.
Mm-hmm.
Others kind of fit it in here and there where a natural gap appears in the schedule. Which school do you fall into?
Well, I think it's best to do my personal work when I've got a commission at the same time, because the more work you do, the more easy it is to do something else. So I can think work feeds other work in a way. So if you're busy, it's a good thing. If I have no commissions, then I'll find it harder to start on something. But if I have commissions, then I'll do I think it works hand in hand, really.
Yeah.
A personal work will work with a brief, so you're doing something, and then you work on the brief, and then you work on the personal work, and so you're not just stuck on one thing. It's always good to kind of have a couple of things going on, so that you're changing and you're changing from one thing to the other and not getting stuck, and maybe you'll use one thing from the personal work in your commission, so it'll work that way really. I think.
And I know your work is often quite inspired by travel and exotic places. You've probably missed that. Have you any plans to...
all in the mind now, and
any plans to get away when we can, and destinations in mind?
Well, just after the pandemic started, we were supposed to be going to Copenhagen. We had to cancel that.
Was that for a book project?
No, that was just I wanted to go to Copenhagen for quite some time, and I knew in my back of my mind that something would come up to stop that. So there was that, and I always like going to Paris. We have friends in Paris, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, the way things have changed. My wife comes from Estonia, so we often go to Estonia, to Tallinn, which is really lovely, and by the sea as well. But I don't know when that's going to happen again because of the situation. I think I'm not really a kind of beach holiday person. I'm more into cities, that kind of thing, in Europe. So we'll see. Hopefully, maybe it won't be until next year. But,
let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope this time next year we're seeing Paul Thurlby illustrations inspired by your travel.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really nice to catch up, and thank you for hosting us in your lovely seaside apartment. And we're
off for a swim now.
we're all going for a swim.
That's the only reason why I came. And if you'd like to know more about Handsome Frank and our artists, check out our website, handsomefrank.com.
Thanks very much for listening.
Handsome Frank. Handsome Frank.